design career changes?
Yeah, kind of like I had one of chalkboards to Figma boards. I thought it was a
chalkboard
one. Roadmap career changes.
Welcome back to Roadmap, Auto Trader UK's product and tech podcast. I'm Nathan, principal product designer here at Auto Trader, and today we are back for our second official Natter takeover. Very exciting. Before we get into it, for anyone who doesn't know what Natter is, we're a very volunteer-led community based here out of Manchester. We run monthly meetups covering a wide spectrum from UX to UI design, leadership and career growth, fostering a network of future thinkers and leaders. Underpinning all of this is a very strong belief that conversation sparks change. And today, I'm super excited to be joined by two individuals who have very much been part of those conversations from the pretty much the start of Natter's beginnings. We've got Ali Tajir and we've got Joe East, both product designers. Ali, you're over at Midshift.
Yes.
And Joe, you're over at BJSS. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. So first off, thank you for joining us. Now, there's a reason you're both here today, and that's because even though you are product designers and UX consultants, that's not always been your job titles, no, has it?
No, not at all. True.
You both come from very different backgrounds in terms of Ali, if I've got this right, like kind of electrical engineering and architecture, and Joe, you have been a D&T teacher up until quite recently, actually, which is a major shift. So I mean, starting with, feel free to jump in, either of yous. Do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of your journeys into product design?
Go first if you want.
All
right. Well, so obviously I did product design, furniture and product design at university a long time ago, finished in 2012. Sort of did a little bit of kitchen and graphic design and then went traveling. That led into teaching English as a foreign language, and I enjoyed the teaching aspect, not really the teaching English, but loved design. So thought when I'd come back, I'd become a teacher of design and technology, something that I'm passionate about. And then that eventually led into me really wanting to solve real world problems, and that's when I took the leap into UX. And obviously I'm sure we'll be talking about that in a little bit more depth.
Indeed. Ali, what about yourself?
So it was quite like a huge journey. So it was like, I remember I went to university to study electrical engineering because, that Asian people do. Like our parents put pressure on us. So actually I remember from the first term was like, that's not for me. So I more into like creating something or building something, but I wasn't sure what was going to be. So, and I just long story short, I transferred my career to be architect. And then I went to the university again and I studied architecture, and I really, really enjoyed that. And then actually I remember I found a community with one of my friends, and I was so much into those tech stuff, finding like, new like tools, what you should do. Then after that, it was a quiet journey, and I went and worked as a sales agent, sales manager. Then I find myself to open my own company, which is failed like a startup. It was too early for VR stuff. Then I remember like my journey to become a product designer. So I had a self-reflection, and I was like, okay, what should I do with my career? So combination of everything I like and everything I did, like all of those manager position, business, psychology, tech, design, building something. And it was one moment that actually I always went to my friend and talk about this situation. And one of my friends said, do you know there is something named UX design, product design? I was like, I know this like tech stuff, how does it work? Like I had that company, and so many of my close friends, they are like a programmer or like CTO, but I didn't hear that term specifically. And it was like a spark moment that I actually went and just learned a little bit more about that. Yeah. Then I talked to other friends, like literally 1 week after, I took one short course and talked to other friend. I said, I decided I wanted to do this. And he was a CTO of the company, and he said, cool, I need a login page in 2 days. Can you do that? I was like, Really? No, I mean, like, I don't know anything about
No,
I need
no.
that. I'm sure you can do it. So yeah, basically that 2 days I didn't sleep. I just went through the YouTube to Google to search. Okay, first, what is a login page? What is Figma? Okay, cool, interesting. Let's just download the Figma. Then I remember I built something like did some of those components. And it's like how it's gonna happen if it's hover on it. Like, you know, it was like a first project, real project, and I hand over to him. But I was dead. Like, I didn't sleep for 2 days. So yeah, that was a start of it. And since then, I moved to UK. I just tried to learn more and more and work on some project. Again, I try to mostly work on like actual project through networking and talk to my friend, and some opportunity come in. I said yes. So yeah, that's about it.
Nah, well, I mean, that's a deep dive there. Well, no, it's really exciting. I mean, you touched on there. Obviously, it was one of your friends who kind of introduced you to like the discipline of like UX and UI. What about yourself, Joe? Like, how did you kind of stumble upon like the product design or UX consulting as a role?
For me, it's interesting because I was going to bring that up. Exactly the same. I sort of was talking about maybe teaching isn't the career path for me, and not obviously at all. But some of my friends, you know, some of them business analysts, they are like delivery leads or product owners.
Yeah.
So they know my skill set, and also. There was a fellow content designer as well, and they sort of just asked me if I'd heard about it, and then that was it. I sort of asked where I should go. They showed me Interaction Design Foundation, so that's where I sort of started my learning, and then from there I just got the bug, and it's progressed to where I am now. To be
and it
fair,
stemmed from there. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to delve into it a little bit deeper because I mean, I imagine at one point, obviously, there was a time when you were in your previous roles in a totally different career path, and you've kind of come to a position where you know your friends either told you about this industry, or you know you've heard about in other aspects. Like, what was the kind of moment for you that really like made that shift to go, actually, this is what I want to do, and I'm gonna start that journey? Like what was that time for you? Is like,
so for me, it was after I'd got an account with Interaction Design Foundation, and I started to delve into it a little bit. I got the bug, and then, as I said, in my teaching career, sort of plateaued a little bit. So as soon as I started that, and then started to talk to my friends about that role, it just opened it up, and to all the different practices within UX. I didn't know where I wanted to go, so I was exploring those, and it was that exploration that sort of led me, and then I've just not been able to stop since, to be honest.
no, I can imagine. And for yourself, Alex?
So yeah, for me, it was, as I said, although my friend told me that, but I was in that transition part to what I wanted to do with my career.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of like research, like talk to a therapist, like talk to a mentor, like bringing all of the data from what I did before, like either was it architecture, the electrical engineering, founder, manager, anything. I bring all of them, say, okay, what are these? These are all dots. Okay, how can I connect all of these together? And what I like. So I bring all of those together to decide actually if this works for me or not. But I didn't had any knowledge of what is the career in UX should be or how it's going to be. So that's why I took that course to realize what is in it. And also horrendous amount of time to watching those type of video, a day in a career of a UX designer, like those intro of the YouTube videos. So I watch all of them to notice like, okay, I like this part. I don't like this part. I want this. I want that. So I remember I had actually 400 job title that I considered that to transition, honestly. So I was like, okay, I want to be like for example, like a technical architecture, like to work in advanced technology, like those patterns of architecture. And I had a consideration to go and start doing like a mastering MBA. So, but at the end, I decided I want to be a product designer because I wanted to make somehow a bigger impact on society.
Yeah.
I love architecture, but for me, I was like, when I'm building something like a apartment or like an interior design or like say, for instance, if you are very, very lucky when you're 50 years old and you became like a Norman Foster and you built those amazing building, you have a big impact in that area. But I assume that in the early days in the design career as a product designer, you can have bigger impact on the society in different aspects. And although I can satisfy my passion for design and all of those stuff, I think in product design I can satisfy more everything else. Like I'm fascinated for psychology, like, you know, business. All of those together can give me something more enjoyable. So,
oh, definitely. I think you touched on something that's quite interesting there, because I guess even though you're in these positions you're in now, it sounds like your previous roles kind of like touched on an element of like creativity to a degree, you know, in whatever format or shape that kind of manifested itself. You also touched on something which I think is quite I'd like to kind of jump on a little bit, is when you were kind of decided you want to break into this industry, that you mentioned there was like 400 job titles. This is something I've always kind of found itself, because even being in this industry for as long as I have, like probably a little bit more over the past couple of years, it's become a little bit more standardized in terms of like product designer, UI designer. But you go back 5-10 years even, and UX as a discipline fairly it's been around for a while, but it probably wasn't standardized and it wasn't well known in organizations. So you had this kind of this world where like every different company had a different interpretation of what they wanted, and trying to find a role was very confusing, because some people would want a UX designer who is also a web developer, who can also animate, who can also do all these different things. Did you find any of that on your kind of transition into your roles that you're on now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't find 400. I was a sort of new UX, so it was, you know, your content design, service design, product design, user researcher with the ones. But I still, and to this point, I'm still sort of unsure on which one is 100% for me. So I suppose getting this consultancy UX consultant role has worked out quite well, because the previous project I was on, I was bouncing around user research and being a product designer. Yeah. But I and that's what I was going to say, is I think when I was self-teaching as well as being a full-time teacher, I found going through a whole project end to end, and that wasn't with all the knowledge. That was, I was probably maybe 2 or 3 months into the boot camp that I did in my own time. And I found that really beneficial, because you get to understand all the different practices and how they interlink and how they work together. And as I went throughout that project, I was making sort of pros and cons, in my opinion, of which one best suited me. So that's something that I would recommend doing, and what really helped me sort of understand that research and product design were the sort of areas that I wanted to spend my time in.
Yeah, so I'm completely agree with you, Joe. So I heard so many posts on social media that people saying, okay, you have to first start with UI. I'm agree with that, but I'm thinking for any career, there is some misinformation about UX. So, and one of the most problem come from those boot camps. I understand is a very, very new thing. The UX still is new. Yeah. So many of those bootcamps say, okay, you can get like a job guarantee, or you can become so many people saying you can become a UX designer in 6 months. I don't agree with that, because imagine as an architect, you have to go to university, have a bachelor degree, 4 years. I mean, in my country it's 4 years. Then you have to do a master for 2 years. Then you have to work in an office to just be trained with the other architect, and then get some licenses to actually be able to say, okay, I'm an architect. Yeah. So it's a long journey. And so many of the architects basically cannot do a proper work. Won a crazy award till they became 40 or 50. We have some rare number of architects that won a very big award in like Aga Khan in when they are 25 years old. Yeah. But it's not possible, because you have to have a deep knowledge. So for UX or product design, I believe you have to have a grasp of, be a sponge, have a grasp of everything, what's happening end to end, as Joe mentioned. Yeah. And then you realize that, okay, I know all of this because I have to know, because I have to work with other people. As an architect, you have to know how that civil engineering work to build something that
Yeah.
actually be possible to build. Correct?
Yeah.
So you have to know how developer think. You have to know how product manager think. You have to know all of this process end to end to understand. Then be like, okay, I want to be like a T-shape, have
Yep.
this grasp knowledge, and then
Find
go
your
and be
specialism.
like, okay, I am especially I'm into interaction design, or like very, very niche. I'm like accessibility, specifically for like a health tech. I do this. This is my thing. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I'm thinking like it's good to have a full knowledge, like end-to-end project if it's possible, and just absorb as much as you can.
Yeah.
Then go through other stuff.
And yeah, definitely wouldn't, don't wait and think, oh, I need to learn a bit more. Just, I think getting stuck in is the best way. And, then you can go back to your learning and see how it applies as well. And I think, that's something that really
There's a lot
benefited me.
of things you can learn. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
endless.
a lot. Like, it's endless. If you want to
Yeah,
do
there's
to-do
so
list,
many disciplines, and like you said, you've touched on a really good point there around kind of being more generalist versus more of a specialist, having more of a specialism in one of those kind of disciplines. So I mean, it'll be really interesting. I know obviously for yourself, Joe, kind of this transition was a little bit more recent. So towards the end of 2024, was it August?
Yeah, August.
August 2024. Obviously, that's when you landed your first role in at BJSS as a UX consultant. So congratulations again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think what's really what I'd like to dive into a little bit there is obviously I had obviously seen you come into quite a few of our Natter events kind of prior to that, and you kind of made us aware of, you were trying to break into this industry. Can you maybe delve a little bit more into the kind of like how your journey kind of went from that the decision you'd made to kind of quit teaching to getting into your role, and kind of the steps in between that? Because I know that was a long journey for yourself.
Because obviously I was doing it my own time. It was probably a good 2.5 years. So like I'd made the decision a while ago, but I knew it was going to take time. I got a mortgage to pay. That's the way it was. But it also allowed me to make sure it was something that I wanted to do. But that once I'd made that decision, it was building a portfolio, I suppose, so getting some projects in, so speaking to people, those friends that sort of helped me make that decision. They would maybe give me suggestions on, I used this website the other day, it was rubbish, why don't you have a look at it, and giving me real work that I can apply the skills that I've learned so far to. So that was really, really important. And then getting a mentor, I wish I'd done sooner. I had a little bit from this sort of boot camp that I paid monthly for, because I couldn't do the crash course one, obviously. So I got a little bit of mentorship through that, but I really would recommend jumping on that as soon as possible. That was something that really helped me, because obviously I'm in my own bubble. I'm not speaking to people about it. Whereas as soon as you get a mentor, you've got that conversation started, and they obviously mentors have so much knowledge in that area because they're in that area all the time. So that was something that really helped me progress and improve my portfolio over the time. I'm just trying to think what else.
I think one of the things actually that probably touched on is when you did that talk a couple of months back as well. One of the things I was really impressed with is you shared like this massive spreadsheet. I think that was with all the places you'd applied to, and kind of the feedback you've got, and the responses, and whether that was a positive or negative response for yourself. Like,
and I think that's really important to do, just to track, because you're putting in a lot of work. And I think it's important to reflect on that when you have those days where you've applied for 20 and had 20 rejections. It's important to look back on that, and it is a lot of work, but also it's a lot of, you can ask those people for feedback, and I didn't get feedback from everyone, but you get that feedback and you work on it and you progress through it. But definitely tracking the applications that you do and getting out into the community. I'm sure we're probably going to touch on this, but like, get the community is what solidified my decision to get into UX, and I'm still getting that community at BJSS as well. Obviously in the outside world, when people are a little bit more relaxed is one thing, but when I started my role and having that those people that you can just Slack channels, either send a message, or if it's you're in the office and you can talk to people, I think. And they're just as committed to helping you as they would be at a networking event. That's something that I've found incredibly useful.
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously like community and the power of community is obviously something that's very much important to all of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not just myself. I think obviously it'd be really good to understand from your perspectives, like kind of what role did like a community like Natter or other community groups that you might be a part of, like what role did that kind of play in kind of helping you build? Ale?
So I'm always a fan of like community, any type of community. Like it's gonna basically that Natter, like a phrase of Natter, is very interesting name. You know, I remember the first community that I actually I was a founder of when I was in university, when I studied electrical engineering. One of my, like, it was during that area that it was like all of those blocks, you know. So every department, every of those college students, they had like a different blog for themselves. And I was like, okay, why we don't make like a blog for everyone, for all of these people together, you know? So I believe always like the community is very, very important. For myself, I specifically, literally every position and every experience in my life I had, it was through networking. It was through community. Like literally, I cannot say any of them, it was without the community. Like my latest role, I actually went to an event and I talked to a girl and she was into a UX and product design. And I talked to her and I sent her some resources. She sent me some stuff and I always talked to her. And after a while, it was like 6-7 months, I was always catch up with her. And someday she was like, actually, I opened a company and I'm a co-founder of that company and you want to jump on board? And I was like, cool. but she told me, you know, because I was always catching up with her. So community is so important for so many reasons. First, you can learn some stuff that you cannot find it in online courses. Yeah. It's like a first hands-on experience, brand new stuff. That person that's gonna tell about that thing, think about that, you know, work on that, you know, it's come from the pure experience. You know, like for example, that sheet that you mentioned on your talk, it's come from your experience. It's not like I went to YouTube and someone said just something, you know. So it's very valuable. On the other side, you can find a very, very good mentor through community. You can go to ADP list and just search randomly, see who you like. Is the picture of this person interesting or the experience interesting? Or maybe I come to Natter and I met Nathan. I was like, okay, this guy looks very cool. He's so friendly. I would like him to be my mentor, you know? That's a big difference. And he actually, when he see me in that event, he's like more into become my mentor, you know? So these are like, I think it's a huge difference. You can learn, you can get a good mentor, you can find a very, very good opportunity, specifically in this market. How many times happened that we've been on Natter and it was a job posting in Natter that it wasn't online? You know, it happening. I think I'm like a huge fan of this type of community, specifically as a migrant, that I actually left all of my network in my country and came here as a person that don't have any network. I advise people, like, doesn't matter where you are in your career, like, network soon, network enough, as much as you can. Like, go to this community, like, as much as you can. Doesn't matter if it's on a different city, like, find someone, stick to it. But stick to it. The other part I really like about the Natter, these type of communities, it's not like one-time events. So every time I feel more comfortable to go to place. Okay, I met 2-3 people. I know these people. Okay, I'm going to go and have fun with Joe, have fun with Nathan. At the same time, met 4 or 5 new people, you know. So I think these are like an advantage of having a community like Natter.
Building your confidence in that sector that you want to get into is so important, and it's such a great way to do it, definitely.
No, for sure. I mean, like I said, you two have both been like really active members in the community. Obviously, I know, Joe, you've decided to come on board and help volunteering.
Where I
can. More recently, and obviously that's something you're thinking about as well, Ali.
I will be on the next one.
Well, next time it'll be all.
They promised me something. We'll see.
Well, you have been to every single event. You know, you've actually been to more events than I have. Which but no, I think actually going back to kind of obviously your previous careers to kind of where you are now, I think think there's probably a really interesting aspect here as well around like, I don't want to say so much transferable skills, but do you guys kind of find you have any like unique kind of perspectives on this role now, kind of based on the role you had previously? So I could look at yourself, Joe, and go, Joe was a teacher, so he's probably going to be really good at like presenting or sharing, and like, probably that's probably a little bit more transferable to any role particularly. But like, there's probably going to be really unique perspectives that you guys have got that really kind of.
What came out the woodwork for me was my sort of empathy, accessibility, and inclusive sort of skills and knowledge around that, because that was so organic through my career as a teacher. I didn't even notice it until I started wanting to apply my skills to UX, and that's been really beneficial for me, because it just keeps me asking questions and relating it back to the user and those human-centered sort of principles, which is what I taught students, human-centered principles. So it's nice being able to bring those things through into this sort of digital sort of problem-solving space that I'm in now. I think, and then obviously you've got the presentation skills. It doesn't matter on that though, really, in terms of nerves. I'm new to the sector. It's presenting. Doing it is fine, but it is still a bit daunting at the minute, I will say. But those communication and adapting as well. I teach a lesson. Maybe it might teach the same lesson 10 times over 2 weeks, but lesson would change and iterate every single time, because my users, my stakeholders, the students, they might not get a certain aspect. So then I'd try and do it visually. I'd try and gamify it. I'd try and present it in a different way, ask them in different questions. And those things, again, come forward into your product design role, where you're constantly iterating and user testing your prototype. So there's definitely,
I love that,
and it evolved, and when you dig deeper into it, more and more of those transferable skills come out. So, and I think that can apply from lots of different job backgrounds as well.
Oh, amazing! I love that. That was a great analogy. What about yourself, Ale?
So I think so the thing I noticed when I start work as a product designer, and basically that system thinking from architecture and engineering, it was very helpful for me. So I was able to, like, when was a very, very complex project, like my latest role, we work on like a AI solution platform that basically it had so many different aspects. So I was able to basically just break this complex problem to small pieces. That's what actually we did in architecture. At the same time, so the thing was, I was constantly thinking about business, because when I was in sale and I was a sales manager, I was thinking constantly about business. So every time I do something, I was like, well, is it actually helpful for us? Like I always have a debate with like a CEO and other stakeholders that talking about like, okay, can we make money from this? Like, on the other side, is it good for user? Like, when I was a sales agent,
looking at those like different perspectives.
When I was a sales agent, I was like, okay, when you want to sell something to someone, you have to listen to them. So be able to listen better to the user, like to understand their pain point. That's actually selling. Like, you have to listen to them to sell better stuff. Imagine you have 100 items you want to sell to someone. So you have to first listen to them, ask better question to find what is going on, which item is good for this person to sell. So this is one part. On the architecture side, that's breaking those complex problems. And at the same time, all of those design is like guiding user through a journey, like in architecture. Just very, very simple, basic thing in architecture. Like you learn so many things about the concept of the buildings, like all of those void that happening for entrance. So the void in the entrance help user to understand, okay, this is the place I have to go through.
Yeah.
Okay, this type of journey that you create in a physical design is exactly, you can think about it in like a digital interface. Like, what is going to happen in the journey of user? Is this onboarding working actually? What's going to happen? What they think about it? Should they press the button to go through? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, all of this stuff actually really, really helped me, specifically to think about the business and user at the same time. Like, is a lot of thing. Like, I always think about the accessibility in architecture, and access is the same thing. Like, I always, when some of my friends telling me that they wanted to break into UX and product design, I'm just always telling them, okay, go through whatever you did in your past experiences and analyze, okay, what you have, you can bring to table. There are so many things, so many transferable skills that can be helpful, specifically for big organizations.
Yeah.
Because they're looking for a unique perspective. So I think it's going to be helpful. Anyone can bring
and
something
so many
valuable.
more there'll be so many more than you think as well.
Yeah,
They
so many
come
more,
out of
yeah.
the woodwork. Yeah.
No, I mean, honestly, like you have just kind of highlighted some perspectives there that I've not even thought about myself. Like, like that analogy there around, you know, having multiple items to sell in as a salesperson. Like that's, yeah, love that. Absolutely love that. Right, we are kind of coming on time now, so there's a few other little bits that I would like to get your perspectives from. Has there been anything as you kind of transitioned into your roles where you found it like particularly difficult? You know, and obviously for yourself, this is probably a little bit more of a newer journey than obviously yourself, Ali. But is there anything that's been particularly challenging you found coming into UX from a different background?
For me, it's you know, there's been so much learning, methodologies and principles that I've learnt. It's how to apply them and when, which will only come with experience. And obviously, like you said, I'm at the very beginning, but that is something that I try and reflect on after each project. Is what have I used? What principles did I struggle? Did I use it in the right place? When I did my workshops, you know, like there was a bit of information that I was trying to understand. I didn't get to that point. What could I do next time? But I think I knew that was going to be a part of it, but it's definitely when I did my first project, you know, it was quite a daunting task. But I think that, like I said, that will come with practice and again, the community and talking to people. You know, when I'm at the networking events, I can, you know, talk about that. This is what happened here. What would you have done in this situation? And that's where I think that's my sort of area that I'm trying to improve on the most at the minute.
For me, when I start, I remember with that mindset of architecture, the thing that surprised me, it was that more ambiguity. So I'm just giving an example. For example, in architecture, because the final product is going to be a building that you cannot iterate on at the end.
Yeah.
When it's built, it's built. You are basically very perfectionist. So you have to think about all of those details. And normally there are some ambiguity at the start of the project, but when you go through it and iterate through it to get that final result, it's not a lot of ambiguity at the end. But in UX and product design, I realized that, okay, there is always ambiguity. Interesting part was that I really like that the final product still is not final product. You can always iterate on it. So there is less pressure, okay, but there is a more iterative process. And this was what I found was difficult. And I tried to overcome this difficulty. So I find it that asking a better question from all the stakeholders, everything I can get a grasp on, like if we don't have a budget for user research, okay, who is the person that I can ask some question? Is that the CEO of the company? Is the product manager know something? Is the competitor do something? Can I find one user that at least talk to that user? You know, like with that amount of time and budget and the skill I have, what question I can ask to get better result, you know, to iterate faster. And also like a communication with all of these people, like a small research, iteration, communication, and like fast processing. I think it gave me a better grasp to reduce this ambiguity and reduce the perfectionism that came from that background.
Yeah, I could imagine that being a bit of a shift, being somewhere where, like you've said, the final result is the final result, and we need to get here by then. Versus,
and it happens so many times, so many horrible projects. Like honestly,
like I said, we're
the collapse after a while.
Well, yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen too often. So I think the last question I've got for you, gents, is essentially just for someone who is in a different background. If someone's watching this and they're actually, you know what, UX sounds really interesting, product design sounds really interesting, I want to get into it. What advice would you give?
Make a plan. That's something that I wish I'd done earlier. I was enjoying the work I was doing, but having a full-time job and then coming home and doing 3 more hours of UX, and I definitely didn't get the balance right for the first year of personal life and self learning. So I'd say make a plan and stick to it to make sure you get some time to switch off, because otherwise you will just burn out. And like we talked about before, get a tracker, create a tracker. Mine was on Excel. It looks disgusting, and the people have done it much more visually than I have. I'd really recommend doing that and get feedback, get speaking to people and getting feedback on your work. Again, I wish I'd done sooner. I was a bit precious about it, sort of similar to you. I wanted to be finished before I got people to look at it, but that's not the UX way. We know it's that incremental feedback and iteration that and I think those 3 things are the most important, I would say, looking back, for me. Not for you.
So I think if someone wants to break into product design and UX, I'm gonna say that, as John mentioned, have a plan, obviously. So just find a course, any course, free, anything you can find, just as we mentioned before, like is end to end, to have a grasp knowledge of what is going on. Okay, just finish that course. Try to act as a product designer before you get a job as a product designer. What does that mean? Find anything in any job that you're working to improve, iterate on it. Like, you can't work in a restaurant and improve the process of the journey of the customer. You can't improve the layout of the menu of the restaurant. I did that. I'm saying that because I did that. Just find anything. Network early, network enough. That's the most important thing. And get a mentor. Practice every day, just as much as you can. Have a plan, practice every day, get a mentor, act as a product designer before you get a job.
I like that.
You're gonna find it.
Yeah, I do love that. Motivational speakers, you two, aren't you? There's definitely enough content here for another talk at one of our events soon, gents. But yeah, well, that is us, gents. So thank you very much
so much, Nathan.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody would like to find out more about Natter, you can follow us on Instagram at love2natter or head over to our website, www.natter.community. If you want to reach out to any of us individually, you can find us all on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to answer any follow-up questions you've got. And again, head over to one of our next events. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, and remember to hit the notification button so you never miss an episode. You can follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and see you for another episode. And yeah, thanks to AutoTrader for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Cheers.
Cheers.